Welcome, folks. This is Joint Justice Oversight Committee. If you went looking for us at 10 o'clock, we did go live. We unfortunately went live on our Joint Rules Committee webpage, and it was listed under Joint Rules instead of Joint Justice Oversight. That will be corrected tomorrow. And for those folks that wanted to watch us on YouTube beginning at 10 o'clock, you've missed the first half hour or so. We did hear a report from DOC on updates on the midpoint review of folks on probation, and that seems to be going pretty well. They will be having a report submitted by August 1st. It will go into more depth in terms of the data of how many folks are requesting a midpoint review and the results of those and the numbers of folks maybe discharged from probation or those that will continue on probation. We have then moved on to a discussion with DOC about how we can ensure that justice reinvestment work continues and that we don't overreact to situations that are happening in the state with increased criminal activity and knowing the judicial system, the justice system is not responding. So that's where we had our conversation. That's where we just left off before we've switched over to this correct YouTube. So I'm going to turn it back over to Senator Sears to reiterate one of his last statements and questions.
Well, I think that the conversation from members of the committee and the commissioner and others is helpful in directing us to make sure that we can keep track through all the players in the criminal justice system, the actual impact of justice reinvestment too. One of the things I regret about justice reinvestment one was, other than the numbers of people incarcerated, we don't have real good data on progress made by people lowering criminal, crime rates, et cetera. We do know that the crime rates went down. We do know that we significantly reduced the number of people in prison by about 750 people through Justice Reinvestment One. But we don't really know a lot of the facts. And as we see in our communities an increase in some violent crime and reflected in shootings particularly, a lot of concern comes. And I know that through experience that the pendulum will swing and people will be looking for more serious consequences, let's put it that way. And legitimately so in many cases. However, I don't want to lose all of the progress that we've made over the last few years to that type of change. And, so I'm hopeful that we'll have statistics that back up what we've done, where we failed, where we've succeeded, et cetera. And it's not just corrections because you are at the end of it, but understanding. And we did get into some discussion about catch and release and that complaint from many citizens that somebody gets arrested, they're immediately released and the conditions, and then they go out and commit another crime. And that frustrates the communities.
So this is a work in progress. It will feed into what the commissioner was saying about the new direction in terms of really looking at data collection in the overall system. I look forward to that, not just for the staffing issues within DOC, but also for these initiatives and how they're working out.
If I might suggest that Ben and maybe I volunteer myself to work with Ben for the September meeting and something, bring with the state attorneys and the other players and maybe to get CSG to drop by with some suggestions on how best to quantify what we did and what the progress is.
That makes sense.
If I would have volunteered that.
Yeah, that's fine.
I have little else to do. It's Saratoga and I took my mind up. They're closed on Monday and Tuesday. So.
And you don't play too much golf?
No, not on Monday and Tuesday.
Yeah. So I have a question, Commissioner, in terms of gathering this data, which
Yeah.
is, some of this data is beyond DOC. It does involve our state's attorneys and our courts and our defense counsel. But your IT system has been a point of concern for a number of years. And we have talked about this over the years of updating it, investing in a new system. Is that going to be a detriment to DOC gathering the data they need in order to make these evidence-based decisions?
Yeah, it's interesting that you raise that as a point. So while we are restructuring our data and research team, we are also adding resources to the team that manages the system that you're discussing. In part because we recognized that that system is not perfect in many ways, and requires a substantial amount of work to get it functioning in the way that we want it to. And there are things that we'd like it to do that it doesn't do right now, and that's purely because we have a resource limitation, our ability to work on that system. And so we're also adding to that as a complementary effort, but separate. So I hope that we can improve that system, and it continues to be better than it has been. There's a lot of work that's gone into making that as strong a system as it can be. But I think taking a step back from that for a moment, we as a department possess an inordinate amount of data. So we do have a lot of data that's unexploited and hasn't been collected in the right way or cleaned in the right way or analyzed or utilized or explored. And so I think one way that we can start is knowing that we have some IT limitations, certainly. We can start with what do we have and how do we make use of it? And I think this is a feature that complex organizations across the country are experiencing is how do we, everybody has a ton of data now, how do we use that in a meaningful way? And I think the first thing that's necessary is to create a team that has that capability of analyzing, cleaning, sorting data to get it in a usable format. And so that's where we're starting. I think that's a required feature of any modern complex enterprise because data is clearly a driving force now and will be for the future. And so let's take advantage of that opportunity. So that's why we started there. But recognizing we have limitations on our IT system, we've also expanded that team to begin to be able to tackle more of the problems that are presented through the IT system.
So I just want to be clear when you said it's a real resource issue. Mm-hmm. That it's a people issue, but also a system itself issue.
Right. Both of those things are accurate, yes.
It's not just the people.
We did not have enough.
System, IT system to begin with.
Right. It's a system that, we've had for, Rachel can correct me, but a number of years now. And it is clunky, I guess is the best way to say it. And so it takes a lot of manual effort to adjust it to our needs. And I think Dale experiences this regularly when the legislature changes, for example, midpoint review, there are reverberations that we have to go in and change the physical IT structure to be able to respond to those needs. And so because of its limitations, it requires more human resources to work on that. And I think those systems have evolved since we last contracted for a new one. And so, in future iterations, it's possible that we get a more high functioning system that requires less manual effort.
As long as there's money from the legislative end.
Right. Fortunately, we have some very good friends here that'll help us through that process.
Questions on this topic of midpoint review, collecting data, for justice reinvestment progress, where the positives are, where the negatives are. Anything else before we move on? Okay, thank you.
All right.
So our next item, and we will have Commissioner of Corrections as well. You're going to be in the audience for a bit.
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
last year, put in place S3, which became Act 57, which really deals with folks in a mental health situation and in terms of where they housed, be it in a correctional facility, or the thought was, should we be at the point of developing a forensic unit within our system? There was a working group that was established through S3, Act 57. And this working group would be providing recommendations in terms of competency to stand trial and insanity as a defense, and give us some direction, give the legislative branch a direction on how we go forward in resolving issues with this population. We did this last year. The stakeholder group was convened as of July 1st last year. And then they're required on or before August 1st of this year to submit a final report to us, as well as the chairs of the Corrections and Institutions Committee on the House side, Healthcare, Judiciary Committees, and the Senate Committee on Health and Welfare. So we've got a long list of folks who are here, and we're going to start with the Commissioner of Mental Health, I would assume, Emily Hawes.
Yeah, sure, we're a little early, so we have some folks, some key speakers joining right at 11, so I can text them and see if they can hop on early. They want
That would be great. We can also take a quick 10-minute break if people want. You want to take a break? Okay, let's take a 10-minute break, and that will help you folks.